Hi, and welcome to Tasty Tuesday, brought to you by Transition Nutrition and Fitness Coaching. I'm Angie, and I'm here every Tuesday to bring you a new and delicious whole food, plant-based food recipe that you can incorporate into your family's weekly menu. Now that kids are starting to go back to school, we're going to focus on some things that you can batch prep and have leftovers to maybe put in that school lunchbox or cook ahead so that when you come home from work that day, you've got your dinner ready. So let's get started. Today, we are going to make a pizza crust, a pizza sauce, and then top the pizza and cook it. This video will be a little bit longer because it is 3 different recipes that I'm incorporating into one video. It's not really that hard to do, but it does take a bit of time between each step. So let's get started. We're going to start with the crust. Now, to cut down a little bit of the time, I'm still going to tell you the number of ingredients, but I've already mixed together my dry ingredients in the bowl. I have 3.5 cups of whole wheat flour, 2 tablespoons of almond flour, 1.5 teaspoons of garlic powder, and 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast that I've mixed together in a big mixing bowl so that they're nice and combined. Next, we're going to move over to the food processor, which is where the remainder of the wet ingredients are going to begin. For the wet ingredients for the pizza crust, you're going to take 1 1/3 cups of very, very hot tap water, 1.5 ounces each of dried pitted dates and dried pitted prunes, and 2 1/4 teaspoons of rapid rise yeast. And you're going to put all of the water and the prunes and the dates into the food processor. And you're going to pour your yeast into the bottom of the mixing cup that you just poured the water out of. And now we're going to blend this and puree this. Now we're going to take the pureed date prune water mixture and whisk it together in our measuring cup with the yeast. The dates and the prunes are what's going to be your sugar that activates your yeast. You're going to whisk this together, and then you're going to set it aside for 5 minutes to let the yeast start to work. Now, I've transferred my dry ingredients to my food processor. If you want to mix them in your food processor to begin with, that's perfectly fine too. You want to give it a few pulses, make sure your cornmeal or your flour and your almond flour get incorporated together with your nutritional yeast. I just do it in a bowl and dump it in, but you can do it either way. The next step is we have our prunes, our dates, and our yeast with our hot water that has risen and gotten a little bubbly. We're going to very, very slowly pour this mixture into the food processor. Now, it's going to be a little noisy, and I apologize, but you really do need to see what happens as the process goes. So we're going to start the food processor and very slowly add the yeast mixture. Is starting to make a different noise, and what's going to happen is this will eventually start to form a dough ball. You're probably going to take about 2 minutes after you've emptied all of the wet ingredients into the dry, but you'll see it start to form a ball in the middle of your food processor. You can see it slowing down, it's starting to get crumbly, it's starting to stick together. Now it's going to start balling up. What's nice about this pizza crust recipe is it's no rise, you don't have to punch anything down, and it's basically all made in the Vitamix and the food processor. And it's so amazing, but you'll see that you pretty much have a dough ball formed right inside of your food processor. You want to make sure you lift out that dough ball and get all of the remaining parts in there. I'm going to take my blade out and then get the rest of the bits of dough incorporated into my ball. This is just so easy. And although it does seem like a long recipe, it really doesn't take that long to do. This will make 2 13-inch pizza crusts. And you can cook the crust ahead of time and then freeze them, or you can cook them, take out after 6 minutes, add your sauce that we're going to make in just a minute and your toppings, and then cook them for an additional 6 to 7 minutes and eat your pizzas right away. So you're going to just want to incorporate it so that it makes a log or sort of an oval. So I've divided my dough into 2 pieces, rounded them into a ball, and now I'm going to take some cornmeal, and I'm using a Pampered Chef pie plate rollout to roll my crust out on, just so that I can see how big it is. And I have 2 13-inch, these are Breville air fryer pans for my pizza. I found that if I use the pizza pans that have the hole in the bottom, the crust gets a lot more evenly cooked and a lot crisper. So we're going to take some cornmeal and just lightly spread it on our surface. This dough is a bit harder to roll out, but if you start just using your hands to get it in the general shape, it's not a sticky dough, so it's not going to stick to your rolling pin. And I just kind of go in all different directions until I get it out. I know that this is 14 inches, and you want to make it 14 inches for a 13-inch pan so that you have a little bit to tuck under the edge to make that rolled edge on your pizza. So now we're just going to continue rolling it out until it is 14. And so now that I have my crust 14 inches round, I'm going to move it over to my pizza pan. Now what I like to do is I want to make sure that the corn meal is on the bottom. So I just flip it over and place it gently on the pan. You should have about a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch that's hanging over. And then you're just going to take that edge and gently tuck it under all the way around your crust to make your little edge for your pizza crust. Then we're going to take a fork. I've already preheated my oven to 380 degrees. I'm using my Breville Smart Air oven, so it's a convection oven, but you can preheat your oven to 500 degrees and bake it just like I would in my convection oven. I'm going to take a fork and pierce it. If you don't pierce it with the fork, it's going to bubble up on you and you won't have a nice even surface to put your pizza sauce on. We're going to bake it for 6 minutes. It won't be completely done. We don't want it completely done because we're going to add toppings to it and make our pizzas. And if you were going to freeze it, you would still want to bake it for the 6 minutes prior to freezing it and let it cool. So I've made my fork marks all over it so that it won't puff up. And I'm going to pop it in the pizza oven. So while our pizza crusts are cooking, we're going to start our sauce. We're going to start with 1 can of no salt added tomato sauce. And I've got my burner set on medium heat. You want to make sure you use no salt added or your pizza will be incredibly salty by the time you're done. You're going to use 3 tablespoons of tomato paste, 1 tablespoon of maple syrup, 1 teaspoon of onion powder, 2 teaspoons of garlic powder, 1 tablespoon of oregano, 1.5 teaspoons of basil, 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper, 1 teaspoon of red wine vinegar, 1/4 teaspoon of red pepper flakes, and 1/2 teaspoon of Italian seasoning. And we're going to whisk all this together and let it simmer for about 5 minutes. Now at that point, you can also make this sauce ahead of time. I tend to make it ahead of time and just have it in the refrigerator for when I want to make a pizza. You can store it in the refrigerator for up to a week, so that if you had time one day to make the sauce and another day to make the crust, then you've got the parts ready and you can come home after dinner one night and just throw it all together to make your pizzas. But really it only takes about 5 minutes, and then our sauce will be ready to put on our crust. You're really just heating it through to incorporate all those spices and all those flavors. Now at the end, I do usually taste it to see. Our family tends to like it pretty spicy. Sometimes I will add a little bit more of the pepper flakes, or if you like yours a little sweeter when you taste it, you could add another half tablespoon of maple syrup. But just kind of adjust the seasonings to your family's preference for flavors for pizza sauce. Now that we have our crust cooked and I've let it cool for about 5 minutes, we're ready to assemble our pizza. I'm going to take about 1/4 of a cup to 1/2 cup of the sauce, and I use a frosting knife once I get it on here to spread it around to the edges of my crust. That should be about enough. You can put, some people prefer more sauce, some prefer less. We kind of are somewhere in the middle. So you're gonna put all the sauce, make sure all the edges are covered. Get it as close to the edge as you can, so you have toppings in every bite. At least that's what we like. Then the first layer that I use for my pizza is baby spinach leaves. So I just buy the box of baby spinach leaves. You can buy whatever, you can buy the bulk, you can buy them single, however you prefer. And I make a layer all over the top of the pizza of the baby spinach leaves. Some of these aren't quite so baby, but that's okay, they cover more ground. And I just make a complete spinach layer all over the top of the pizza. You have a real thick stem. Sometimes I pinch the stems off, but most of the time the stems get soft in the oven. The other thing that's different about this recipe than a lot of the recipes that I had found when I first started was they all called for you to saute and cook the ingredients ahead of time that you were going to put on for the top. I add all of my toppings raw. I just cut them very, very thin with a Tupperware mandolin that I will show you in just a few minutes, right across the top of the pizza, and they cook just fine. That way they're not too soggy, they're not overcooked, and it makes a delicious topping for your pizza. And that way it saves the step too of sauteing another ingredient or cooking another ingredient. So now that I have my pizza totally covered with the spinach leaves, the next layer I like to do is my red onion. Now I love this little Tupperware mandolin for making pizza because it makes the slices so thin. And I just take it honestly right over the top of the pizza and go back and forth until I have the amount of toppings that I want. Now this will get fairly thick with toppings, but they're sliced so thin that they press down and cook down very nicely. So just keep going until you have the desired amount of toppings that you like. And I make a layer of red onion. And this cuts it paper thin. So you don't have to worry about getting little chunks or bites of onion on things where you don't want them. So there I've got my red onion, and it's sliced. You can see how paper thin that's sliced. And just kind of I redistribute it. If I get too much in one spot, I move it around a little bit so that everything's kind of got a little bit of onion in every bite. The next ingredient are mushrooms. I use the portobello mushrooms, And again, if you're using the mandolin slicer, you get them nice and thin. They're like paper thin on your pizza. So it does a really nice job of slicing them. Be careful, I'm not using a guard because this really doesn't fit down in the guard, but I never go low enough that I'm in danger of slicing my finger on the mandolin. I just grab a new piece and start over. If you don't have the mandolin, you can slice it with a knife, but it is a bit harder to get these nice, even, thin slices. And I will link it down below. You can get it on Amazon, or if you have a friendly neighborhood Tupperware dealer, you can get one from them. I think they're around $25. I do have my oven preheating again so that I can pop my pizza in when it's done. And again, you can put as thick of layers on here as you want, but you can see it makes the mushrooms just paper thin so that they give the flavor and all of the good nutritional value without having big chunks of raw mushroom when you're done. And there's no sauteing required. So after the mushrooms, we like black olives, banana peppers, pineapple, and broccoli. I always add the broccoli last because it sticks up the highest. So right now I have my pineapple tidbits that are just in pineapple juice. And I'm going to put those around my pizza. Again, you want to make sure that you get a little piece of pineapple in every bite. And you can always save the leftovers to add to a salad or some other, or another pizza, because this does make, again, it makes 2 pizzas. I'm only demonstrating on one. So there's my pineapple. Now I have my sliced black olives, and I always buy them. They're a little more expensive to buy the pre-sliced ones, but it saves a lot of time, and you can put these pizzas together in no time if you buy the pre-sliced ingredients. I do buy the bulk bag of broccoli florets and break those down into little tiny pieces myself. So there are my black olives. Next, we like raw jalapeno on our, again, this little mandolin. All I do is take a knife and I core out the inside of my jalapeno and then just slice it very thinly. Now this is a little spicy. If you have little ones at home, you might want to leave the jalapeno off, but it does add some really nice flavor. And again, you just kind of move them around when you're done so that you have a little bit in every bite. Just love this slicer. It works so nice for this. Next, I put on some orange sweet bell pepper. What I do is I just cut the quarters and then again, rub it back and forth against the mandolin to make nice thin strips. Again, make sure you don't go down too far so that you're endangering your fingers. Just rub it and then always just get a fresh piece when you get towards the end. So there are my green peppers. Now I'm going to add my broccoli. And like what I said, I buy the little florets. I chop off the ends and I just tear them in these little tiny floret pieces and add them to the top of the pizza. Next, we're going to use our banana peppers. We like to have banana peppers with the pineapple. And I just lay those little rings down on top. They're already pre-sliced, so you don't have to worry about slicing those. And then the final ingredient, we're going to give it a good sprinkle of nutritional yeast. And this is what's going to give it the cheese flavor to make your pizza taste a tad bit cheesy. We're going to pop it in the oven for about 6 to 8 minutes, depending on your oven. Set it 480 degrees until it's lightly browned on the top. We'll be right back. And here we have our finished veggie pizza, ready to be served. I hope you enjoyed this recipe as much as my family does. We have it at least once a week. And remember to hit that thumbs up button because it really helps us out if you'd like to see more videos like this. Also, in the comments, please feel free to include any other recipes you'd like to see me demonstrate. Remember, plants are the best medicine. If you'd like to see more videos, you can go here, or make sure you can subscribe down here in the corner. Thank you, and have a great day.